Mr. President, why haven't you announced a plan to get 36 million unemployed Americans back to work? You're overseeing historic economic despair. What's the delay? Where's the plan?
I think we've announced a plan. We're opening up our country. Just a rude person you are. We're opening up our country. We're opening it up very fast. The plan is that each state is opening, and it's opening up very effectively. And when you see the numbers, I think even you will be impressed, which is pretty hard to impress you. Yeah, go ahead, please.
A lot of these jobs are not coming back.
Remember, this is the revolutionary act of Trumpism, is that when you are verbally assaulted by the media, by partisans in the media who are trying to undermine you because they're activists, because they're frauds, they're fakes, you don't just take it. You don't say, "Oh, thanks. Can you do that again? Can you malign me again based on a false premise? Oh, that was great." No, that's the Romney model. That's the old Republican model. No, Trump is like, you know what? That's just gross. We all know why the economy's in such bad shape. It was fantastic before this outside entity. I mean, this would be almost like an alien invasion from space. Okay, things happen. You know, yeah, you could say we could see this coming. I know an alien invasion from space is an unlikely thing, but, who knows? But the point is, this was an external factor that was not just the United States involved. There was nothing that could be done to stop. No country has stopped this entirely, not even close. Every country has been dramatically affected by this, at least their economy has in some way. And we're still seeing this play out across the globe. So as we look at this, to have reporters who are deciding that this is an opportunity to say, where's your plan for the job? The plan is to let people go back to work, and the idiot libs are fighting against it at every step. The plan is to let us actually do our jobs again. That's the jobs plan. Stop telling us we can't work. Stop telling us we can't do anything. Government. And then they turn around. So you see, this is the way they do it. The libs create the fire, and then they turn around and say, where's the fire department? Why aren't they here? Why aren't they here fast enough? Trump has been trying to get the country reopened. He's been trying to push for this for weeks. It's the left that keeps saying, oh, no, you're gonna kill all the old people. Why are you so terrible? And all this other stuff. So they demand continued lockdown. They demand the shutdown of economic activity. And then they turn around and say, well, hold on a second. Why aren't you bringing all kinds of new plans forward to create jobs? You know what the best way is to create jobs right now? Remove all these dumbass regulations from people like Cuomo and Murphy and Newsom and these other governors who are just constricting the American economy and crushing the hopes and dreams of tens of millions of people. Because this is what their ideology really decides for them. The left sees this as an opportunity to destroy Trump, to prevent him from getting a second term, to create a massive and overwhelming government intrusion into our lives that is continuous, that will not stop, to reorder the American economy, to reorder the relationship between citizen and state. All of this. Oh, and I just saw, speaking of citizens, I just saw that Seattle has voted 9-0. Seattle City Council wants to create a $100 million fund for illegal aliens. So you have over 30 million Americans who have lost jobs. You've got trillions and trillions of dollars of debt piling up. And you have sanctuary cities like Seattle that want to make sure that your tax dollars, remember, they're taking money from you, from your business, saying you can't stay in your home unless you pay us the following. And they're taking some of that money now, at least in Washington State and in Seattle, and they're making sure that it goes to illegals. They're already doing this in California, too. Gavin Newsom's already made sure of that. Why is that okay? How does anyone find that to be acceptable? And then they lecture us all on the rule of law. Do what I say because it's the law now. First of all, a lot of these orders aren't the law. They're just deciding under really essentially what you would consider, if it was the president who was doing it, an executive order. But these governors are just giving orders, and you're saying, well, hold on a second. It's never been expanded in this way for this period of time. It's never happened before. They say, yeah, but This is now, the law is what we say it is on this. That's actually lawlessness and tyranny. And we have slipped into it with not nearly enough pushback, not nearly enough outrage and action. Where's the action? I don't have a business that I could go open and get arrested, but if there's a business that I want to use that's opening up somewhere here in New York, I'm going to go and be a patron. And if they find me for going, or they find me for being a customer, or if they arrest me, so be it. I can't imagine the stress and the strain that people are going through right now in a lot of these states because of imbeciles who are making all the decisions for all of us about how we can go about our lives in the midst of this pandemic. I had my friend Will Ricardella from the Washington Examiner, great guy, and he was down in Georgia for the last week. And I've been talking to him, and he says, yeah, restaurants are open, bars are open. Now there's limitations and there's some restrictions still, but you can basically go about much of your day-to-day life the way that you used to. Not all of it, but a good portions of it. How are we ever going to return to normalcy with the people in charge making outlandish benchmarks that we're never going to meet and making that a precondition for opening? Oh, and I got so into the CDC school reopening thing that I actually left some of it still on the table. And I had producer Nick, who's one of our producers on the video side for Pluto TV's The First, which is also a way you can download the Pluto TV app anytime. You can also go to bucksexton.com, where we're putting up amazing stories every day. And as of next week, I will be writing a weekly editorial for bucksexton.com. That is our plan. We will execute on it. And this isn't like Malta. This I can actually do with no problem. Malta, I'm going to have to try to do this weekend. Tell the Snow Princess that I need a few hours of Malta time. But there's more in this CDC guidance. And producer Nick told me, he's like, there's no way. You think a 3-year-old's going to keep a mask on his face? And what are you going to do? Then guess what you're going to have to do then? When the 3-year-old's like, I don't want to have the mask. Then you're going to have to have an adult come over, probably with like a face shield and gloves. And, looks like they're doing a space mission. Then you have the adult come over and, touch the kid, put the mask on or something. And, now you got human-to-human contact and it's even worse. And what are we even doing? But there's more. I stopped for the CDC guy. This is from the CDC. For those of you saying, listen to the experts, they're going to turn schools into a maximum. It's going to feel like a maximum security prison because of a disease that is, this is a fact right now. COVID-19 to children is substantially less deadly and risky than seasonal flu in any given year. That's a fact. Do we shut down the schools every year? Do we have face guards and sneeze guards and all this other stuff for seasonal flu? Now people, it's worse than the flu. It's worse than the flu for older people. For the rest of the population, especially as you get closer and closer to the under 20 crowd, it's a whole lot less dangerous than the flu. And so the schools are being turned into these maximum security antivirus facilities under CDC guidance. This is completely crazy. And this is the CDC that Trump inherited. These are bureaucrats. They're not accountable. They don't have to deal with public criticism. No one's going to fire them for being morons. They'll probably be able to sue if anyone tries to fire them and get all their back pay and get some, But staggering arrival is where I stopped, and departure times for students to limit exposure to crowds of kids. If possible, CDC guidance here for school reopening this fall, daily health and temperature checks. And if you think about it, how scary this will be for kids. Libs love to terrify children for very low risk things. This is why they like to do these active shooter drills in schools that will always come up after there's some big moment. The truth is that kids being shot in schools in the last 10 years is actually per capita less than it was in the 80s and the 90s, but they won't ever talk about that. It's whatever the media convinces people of. Oh, it's gotten so much worse. That's not true. Several rules about cleaning and disinfecting throughout the day and hand washing frequently. Hand washing, fine. But they're going to reopen schools and no one's going to want to go to school. They're going to reopen restaurants and no one's going to want to go to restaurants. They're going to allow businesses to open up and they can't make a profit. This is their version of intelligent reopen. They should call it idiotic reopen because that's what it is. But this is what we're up against now. It's not just getting to that phase. It's what are we doing in that phase? Open the country now. All of it. Stop the government regulations. Let the people handle this. Protect the vulnerable and let other people make their own decisions about their lives. This is what the data actually suggests now. This is if you look at what's happened, the conclusion that honest people should be coming to. But oh no, we're all so scared. Just let Cuomo and Newsom make all your decisions for you. See how that works out for people. They're ruining the economies in these states, and they're just going to assume that this turns into a massive opportunity for the expansion of what will be socialism, of a true socialism of government control of industry, government control of the means of production. I mean, this is coming your way if they're able to keep doing this stuff. And redistribution of wealth, that's already been happening, but redistribution of wealth on a scale that is mind-blowing. That's where we are right now. They see it. They see this opportunity. So remember the politics of this as they pretend that it's all about the science. It's not about the science. All right, Team Buck, for your listening and viewing enjoyment, if you're on Pluto TV right now watching us, we have the man himself, former senior advisor to to President Donald Trump. We have with us now, I know, oh my gosh, don't tell him I said that, Dr. G. We got Dr. Sebastian Gorka with us now. He's the host of his own show. You can listen to him on podcast. Dr. Gorka, great to have you, man.
Were you just about to say former senior advisor to Joe Biden?
No. I was going to say Pence for some reason. I don't know why, but see, of course, senior advisor to the man himself.
I would have been honored to
Donald.
work for Mike Pence.
Yeah, he'd be great, of course.
For the big man, DJT, come on, the boss.
But you can't call the big man the vice because he's the one and only.
He ain't vice.
We got
no deputy.
America First with Sebastian Gorka. If you haven't checked out the show, you should. All right, Dr. Gorka. I haven't had a chance to talk to you yet. You know, some folks I'm chatting with a bit offline in our line of work about how insane the lockdowns are. Because one, I want to know what it's like in different states. You're in Virginia. I'm here in New York. But also I want to sort of keep in with what people are seeing and the latest on the data that they're crunching. What are you thinking about these lockdowns? I mean, in New York, I'm calling for it to end now or yesterday if possible, but now I'll take.
Well, look, I've already done 3 hours of radio today. I co-hosted, there's a fabulous show out of L.A. with Jennifer Horn on KRLA. And I just read the front cover of the New York Post today. This incredible letter. It's the New York Post often have super funny front pages. Not today. It's called One Man's Plea. It's from an opinion piece columnist, David Marcus, and it just says, it needs to end now. We have got upwards of 40 million people that have been made unemployed. We've got states of the union like South Dakota where 12 people have died from the coronavirus. We know that at least 50% of the deaths occur in nursing homes. Let's protect those populations. And for God's sake, I'm sorry I said that, Buck. We need to get our country back to work.
We absolutely do. It's a long past time for that. And, you know, Dr. G, I actually was with your former boss yesterday in the Oval talking about a whole range of things. And I'm glad to see that he understands what's going on right now at the political level, but also at the economic level, the devastation that's out there and what people are facing. And he wants us to get back in the game as soon as possible. Just what is the state of play right now in Virginia? I mean, you have, unfortunately, Democrats pretty much running the whole shop at the state level, don't you?
We lost the Commonwealth last year. It's devastating. It's the Senate House. It's the reps. It's the governor. You know, I call him the butcher of Richmond, Governor Ralph Northam. He wants to extend the lockdown. Some small concessions here and there when it comes to use of parks, but this is just another power grab like Cuomo, like Newsom. They think they can extort money from federal government, from the U.S. taxpayer. It's the little test. They get a little taste of power, and they want more, and we have to stop it now. Look, we had this false dichotomy from Governor Cuomo. Remember, he was lecturing us for weeks. It's what's more important, the health, people dying from COVID, or the economy? Well, guess what, you moron? The economy is made up of human beings. We are seeing spikes in suicide rates in Australia that had an early total lockdown. More people have killed themselves in Australia since the lockdown than have died from the coronavirus. We cannot let that happen here in America, Buck.
We're speaking to Dr. Sebastian Gorka of America First with Sebastian Gorka. I like to call him Dr. G, but you should check out his show for sure. And also sebgorka.com, read his latest analysis. So Dr. G, I got to ask you this too. What is it going to take, you think, for mass non-compliance if we don't open up soon? And what are your thoughts on, we know it's there, the looming second wave, that there's going to be we're going to have this whole debate, assuming what we know about epidemiology and respiratory viruses. We're going to have this debate again in September, October, right before the election. And we know the lockdowners are going to say, let's lock down once again.
So we're seeing it in California. We're seeing people resist. We're seeing people go out to the beaches, to the parks. We're seeing sheriffs in California saying, I'm not going to enforce this. It's unconstitutional. Stopping people from making a living so they can feed their children, that's un-American. When it comes to the second wave, let's be clear about what's going on medically in America. I had Dr. Dan Erickson, who had that viral video on YouTube, millions and millions of views before it was deleted, who runs 7 clinics in California, who just gave a very clear fact-based analysis of what is going on in America and what lockdowns do. And just for a moment, look, I'm a doctor, but it's a PhD. I'm going to channel Dan Erickson, who is a doctor, who studied virology, who runs 7 clinics in California. If you're healthy, that means your immune system is daily challenged by things like viruses, by bacteria. That's how it works. It is challenged, and your body's immune system builds the antibodies, the resistance to those challenges every single day. When I'm not talking about over 75 with underlying conditions. When a healthy person locks themselves away for weeks or months, guess what happens, Buck? Your immune system isn't challenged on a daily basis, doesn't build that resistance that makes it a functioning immune system. So what happens? Healthy people become vulnerable. And this is what we have to prepare for. When we go out there, if we maintain this any longer, and healthy people then go out there and start catching diseases, start getting sick, the Democrats, the left are going to see, I told you so, it's the coronavirus, but we as a nation will have brought it upon ourselves.
Dr. G, we got to go to a quick pause here. We'll come right back with more, because I want to talk to you, Dr. Gorka, about the deep state. We're going to hit that when we come back in a second. Okay, we're back with Dr. Sebastian Gorka of America First with Seb Gorka. He is, of course, formerly the senior advisor to President Trump, and he's now talking to us about all the things going on, including with quarantine and the fight against the lockdowns. But I want to transition, Dr. G, to, yesterday I was talking to the president a little bit.
You saw my old boss. How was he? What shape was the president in?
He is ready. He is ready for the fight ahead. He knows it's coming. He understands the opponents. He understands his ideological enemies very, very well. The guy's got amazing energy, and as you know, is really both an incredible storyteller and incredible entertainer in every, whether it's 20,000 people screaming in a amphitheater somewhere or one person sitting in a room quietly with him. He's just an enthralling storyteller. So we were just chatting, and some of it was on the record, some of it was off the record. But one part that I thought was really interesting is, and I wanted you to speak to this, I think he feels that at a really personal level, he feels the vindication of now we're seeing that the deep state came at him, and it was the deep state on Obama administration orders at the very top level with Obama and Biden's at least tacit consent.
So this is one of the things that surprised me the most when I worked for him. So I advised him as a candidate, and then I was his deputy for strategy in the White House. And the only time I ever saw him really angry was just the two of us in the Oval Office, and I was in there on completely other different business. I think it was on the Obama-Iran deal, killing the Iran deal. And for some reason, the topic of Russia came up. I believe it was the day that they forced Jared to make a statement. And the word Russia comes up in the conversation. And he stops. He's seated at the Resolute desk. I'm standing. He looks at me and he says, Sebastian, they will never find anything because there is nothing. And what shocked me all through my time in the White House is his utter, complete, hands-off attitude. He could have, he could have done like Obama, he could have done like Nixon, he could have reached into the apparatus of state, he could have played with it, he could have jiggled with it, because people don't realize it's not the director of the FBI, it's not the Attorney General, it's the president who is the most senior federal law enforcement officer of the land. He didn't touch it. He kept his hands off it. And what happened? For 3.5 years, he was attacked. He was called a puppet of Vladimir Putin. Now, what do we know? The evidence. Mike Flynn, innocent. Mike Flynn didn't lie. No predicate for the crime. 2 weeks before the inauguration, they want to shut down the case because there's no evidence. Peter Strzok reopens the case. They send 2 agents to the White House against all regulations. Don't Mirandize. Don't warn Mike Flynn. They frame him. They charge him with a crime he didn't commit. And then what do we find? Thanks to God bless Ambassador Rick Grenell, the outgoing acting director of national intelligence, we have the documents. 15 days before the inauguration, Obama's in the White House with Comey, with Clapper, with Rice, with the Deputy Attorney General, and it is Obama that has to brief the Deputy Attorney General on the surveillance against Mike Flynn. There's the smoking gun. A bungled burglary called Watergate became the biggest scandal in American modern political history. It looks like a spat in a playground compared to this. The CIA, the NSA, the FBI had an interagency counterintelligence operation against our campaign and then our White House, and it went right to the top to Obama, Buck.
We're speaking to Dr. Sebastian Gorka. His show is America First with Sebastian Gorka on Salem Networks. You can listen to the podcast, also sebgorka.com. All right, Dr. G, I want to know where you think this goes next. I mean, you brought up Rick Grenell, who we both hold in very high esteem. I dubbed him recently publicly the Wyatt Earp of the intelligence community, and I think the president enjoys that too. He's going in there to clean up the mess, and he's done a fantastic. And all he's doing is transparency, right? I mean, people want to say that this is so political. There's nothing. This is through the duly constituted process for declassification. There's obviously a public need to know. They just don't want the public to know. And now, we have Susan Rice now saying, and I've also pointed out that for Susan Rice to write that letter, you're talking about the meeting and then, the follow-on, the email to herself. Dr. G, if somebody was accused of insider trading and they thought that sending themselves 2 weeks after the alleged illegal trade, everything was by the book, I had no inside information, you would laugh because of how obviously guilty that would make the person look.
I had a lawyer on the show yesterday. He's a regular guest, former special assistant to the president. We were colleagues in the White House, Boris Epstein, and he has the legal terminology and he brings it. He says that email, that declassified email, and yes, it's about transparency. That goes to quote unquote state of mind. When somebody sits down 2 weeks after an event and then says, oh, by the way, the president said he wants everything done by the book. The only person who does that is a person who's trying to cover up for a corrupt president called Barack Obama, who was doing everything against the book. As the good bard said, as William Shakespeare said many centuries ago, the lady doth protest too much. They are as guilty as sin, and thanks to Rick Grenell, we have the evidence.
I got to say, it's also like when you have anyone in media who has one of their producers reach out, or I'm sure you've had this many times. I've had this, and it's, when they have to say, "Don't worry, this will be a fair interview," or if they have to tell you it's going to be a fair interview, newsflash.
Trust me.
Yeah, right, it's not going to be a fair. It's not going to be a fair interview.
This will go down, in history. But the big thing is, 165 days to go. Attorney General Barr, John Durham. It's time to get those filings to the courts.
Do you think? We're speaking to Dr. Sebastian Gorka. His show is America First with Seb Gorka. Do you think that if they really, and I got to, I come from inside the bureaucracy. You come from inside the top of the bureaucracy at the White House. I have my concerns, Dr. G, that even if Barr, I think Durham will get to the truth. I think that he is going to put the truth out there, come what may. But charging people from the senior ranks of the DOJ or the FBI, I just don't know. I don't know if anybody in this administration has the stones, but I hope I'm wrong. What do you think?
I'll tell you what I've been saying. You know it from the inside. You're my favorite former CIA, NYPD guy. You can be very cynical, but I know people who've worked for Attorney General Barr when he was last the attorney. I know the track record. John Durham's track record is this is a guy who puts feds in prison. Whether it's the Whitey Bulger case or others, he goes after corrupt cops and he nails them. So I don't think there's going to be a smoking gun of, Obama sent an email to Clapper or Brennan saying, I want you to persecute these guys politically using the intelligence community. He's dumb, but he's not that dumb. But I really do think that there are right now grand juries meeting. And I do think that felony charges will be brought against key individuals in the Obama administration. This has taken far too long. I know they're meticulous. There has to be a reason. And Bill Barr's not doing this to build a reputation. He didn't have to come back into government. He's doing this to clean the Augean stables that is Obama's former DOJ. So I don't know if it's going to be cabinet members, but some people clearly have committed felonies, and I still believe that there will be felony charges brought.
You still got the president's here. What do you think about Rick Grinnell for head of the FBI? I got all kinds of jobs I want to hand over to Rick.
Rick, I lobbied on Rick's behalf. I'll give you that when I was in the White House very, very robustly to make him our ambassador to NATO. The president said, I need you in Berlin. He's done an amazing job. I'd like to see him back here in the administration. FBI maybe. Congratulations to Congressman Ratcliffe, who's been confirmed the vote. He got the vote today to take over DNI. Wherever they want to use Rick, he'll be great. What I'd love to see is my former colleague, my former superior, and my friend, Mike Flynn. General Flynn should come back. I don't think he wants to go straight back into government. I don't blame him. But we need to have a presidential interagency commission to get to the bottom of the Chinese virus. And I think there's a former three-star general whose last name is Flynn, who should be the presidential appointee to chair that commission. What do you think, Buck?
I love that idea. I think that's fantastic. As soon as we have the full and total and complete exoneration that General Flynn so righteously deserves. Dr. Gorka, always fun to talk to you, man. Thank you for the great work you're doing. Thanks for joining us here in the Freedom Hut. And you let me know anytime you want us to join you over to America First. We're good for it.
We'll have you back next week on YouTube. Check out our YouTube channel as well, America First. And I'm Sebastian Gorka. God bless all of your listeners. Thank you, Buck.
Thanks, Dr. G.
We actually had a very good meeting. The Republican Party, the senators, I think virtually everyone was there. I think you had 53 there. And we had a great meeting. We're looking to do great things for the country. We're helping people with stimulus. We're getting money to people. They need it. And we're going to open up very big. We're going to open up, I call it transition to greatness. That's what it is. It's a transition to greatness. And when Larry Kudlow tells you the numbers, those are really surprisingly good numbers this early in. I mean, we're doing very well. I think it's going to be something special.
Here you have the president trying to get us in the mindset for the recovery that we so very much need and we deserve in this country, that we're going to make this transition. We're going to have a much better, end of year, much better final quarter than we've been through up to this point. And he's really pushing on this. And I think that's good. That's the kind of stuff that you want in a leader right now. We need some inspiration too. It can't just be, oh my gosh, this is so bad, and look at this bad number, and look at that bad number, and what are we going to do? So that's what you get from Trump right now. He's trying to work with the reality that that we're all in the midst of. And here is, for example, Nancy Pelosi and what she brings to the table. Play clip 1.
You're asking me about the appropriateness of the actions of this president of the United States? So completely inappropriate in so many ways that it's almost a given. It's like a child who comes in with mud on their pants or something. That's the way it is. They're outside playing. That's what he comes in with doggy do on his shoes, and everybody who works with him has that on their shoes too for a very long time to come. So I don't know. I hear doctors talk to me about saying, what's the matter with him? The things he says are so inappropriate for a president of the United States. The comments he makes about women, so inappropriate. So no, I don't think it's appropriate. But again, there's a market for it, obviously, and that's what he plays to.
She's doggy. She comes in with doggy do, like on his shoes, and everybody who works with him has that on their shoes. Doggy do.
It's like Nancy is waking up after about 6 Appletinis in the late afternoon from her nap. This is the best the Democrats can offer up as leadership for the country. So you got the president talking about a transition to greatness, and you have Nancy Pelosi. You got to wonder when does the mask fall off, or when does the reality become all too apparent so the Democrats can't pretend that somehow the leaders that they put in positions like this with Nancy Pelosi are up for the job. And I just would say it's never going to happen. They're never going to change their mind. So all we can do is make fun of Appletini Nancy.
President Trump has the doggy do on his shoes.
He really doesn't like. I mean, the one thing about this is sometimes you can tell politicians are sparring, and even if they say stuff about each other's records, or Trump doesn't like Nancy, and Nancy doesn't like Trump. I mean, the only person that I could think of who Trump clearly dislikes on a personal level more than Nancy is Rosie O'Donnell. He definitely doesn't like Rosie O'Donnell. But Nancy's still doing the usual stuff here. Oh wait, just a quick one. I mentioned this at the top of the show. Aunt Becky is going to prison. I'm very upset about this because I grew up watching Full House, and I thought it was a really fun show when I was a kid, and it was just very well done. John Stamos and Dave Coulier, and what's the guy's name? Who's the guy who's the man? Bob
Saget.
Saget, thank you. Who you wouldn't think of as being cast as like the most sort of cuddly, warm, and fuzzy dad ever, considering if you ever watch his stand-up, you're like, whoa. But Lori Loughlin and Massimo Giannulli have agreed to plead guilty in the admissions scandal, and she's going to prison for 2 months. He's going for 5 months. Producer Mark, that's pretty harsh, I think.
It's a little harsh, but, why get your daughters into school like that? Make them use their own brains.
Paid $500,000 to get their 2 daughters into the University of Southern California as fake crew team recruits.
What about the real crew team recruits?
True. I rode crew in college. I wasn't recruited.
Of course you did.
Of course I did. But $500,000, man, to get your kids in. Look, no, I'm not throwing shade at USC. Maybe a little bit. If you got to pay to get into USC, you really pay, as in bribe pay. You really should have done more homework. I don't know what else to say. You're paying $500,000 to get into USC. You're not paying $500,000 to get into Yale. Like, what is going on here? if you're going to buy your way into a fancy degree, you would think that you'd at least buy your way to a fancier one. But I think these schools all have price tags. These schools all have, but you have to go through the official process. You do this, you go through the unofficial process, and you end up going to prison. This is pretty astonishing. 2 years of supervised release, $250,000 fine. He faces Giannulli, the husband. She faces a separate $150,000 fine. Wow. I mean, they're giving them, that's real prison time for something that I don't know really how much this is like a crime. I'm just gonna say it. It's definitely a civil issue, but a crime? Maybe I just got a soft spot for Aunt Becky from Full House.